Good morning, my friends. Welcome to this episode of Healing Your Codependency. I'm Marshall Burtcher, and I'm excited to have you here. Today, we're going to jump into love addiction, into why we chase love, especially if you're on the anxious, preoccupied, attachment orientation. We have a habit of chasing love. We have a habit of tolerating better than nothing relationships. We have a habit of attaching and clinging to someone who is not returning love and affection in a way that works for us, that satisfies us. And there are core reasons why we are doing this. And we're going to explore those in today's episode and in future episodes because it's time to break free of this pattern. So, if you're new to me, I help codependents rewire their mind, their body, and their identity so that they can have prosperous relationships, purpose, and prosperity in their world. So let's jump in here. So why do we chase love? Well, because we think that we have to earn it. And why do we think we have to earn love? Why do we think that we have to pursue it and convince someone to love us? And I think most of us probably already know this answer. Usually it's going to go back to our childhood. We experienced, by the way our parents responded to us, that love was conditional or love was intermittent, that we could only get a sense of love, a sense of being appreciated or valued when we did certain things. And this became a persistent pattern for us. And that's one of the biggest elements of this, is we're looking at a pattern where our bids for connection, our bids for attention or affection are intermittently met. So what I mean by intermittently, it's random. You can't really isolate a way to create a response that is routine or reliable from a person. So you do response A, you get response B from them. Or you do thing A and you get response B. And then you do thing A again, you get response Q. You try it again, you do thing A, but then you get response P. And then you do thing A again, then you get response A. But there's no pattern to it. You can't figure out why there's a difference going on there. There isn't a reliable response from the other individual. And this creates anxiety. This creates a sense of uncertainty and unpredictability in the relationship dynamic. You're not sure what kind of response you're going to get from that person. Now, if those intermittent responses of love are also met with other responses that are harmful or threatening or scary, now we're going to start to develop an anxious preoccupation with that in order to try to regulate this situation, in order to feel safe and to feel like we have a secure bond in some aspect with this other person. Now, when it's our parents, we're going to take this kind of experience internally. And a lot of times, because we are experiencing being discarded, micro discards, like, oh, I made a bid for connection. Like, I'd go away, maybe later. Or they just ignore you, or they get really, why do you need so much attention? Things like that. We might internalize a conclusion that says we're discardable. We might notice that they treat other people with a lot more consistent love or affection or approval, but not us. We might notice that they will come to us when they need something and then discard us after that. We're not able to go to them when we need or want something. This habit of, or this pattern of being used and then discarded internalizes a sense that we're not keepable, we're not lovable, we're not cherishable. Instead, we're discardable. And this becomes what I call a root conclusion. A root conclusion is an assumption that we've made into a fact about ourselves that's highly emotionally charged. So it's like an absolute fact for us. Oh no, people don't really love me. They're just going to use me and discard me. A lot of times for those of us that are love chasers, those of us that are on that anxious, preoccupied orientation, that's the core conclusion, the core wound per se, that's driving this behavior. We believe that we're not inherently keepable. Nobody would want to really keep and cherish us unless we're earning something, where we're earning their love, we're pleasing them, we're showing up in a way that really they want. We're very, very other focused. We have centered them in our world. We are driven externally. Our worth is very, very tied up in this, and this shapes our self-concept. Basically, we start to view ourselves as conditionally lovable. And this leads to us chasing love, but it also leads us to chasing people that exhibit this pattern or feel this way to us, because it's very familiar, very normal anxiety that we might confuse with attraction. It's a sense of uncertainty that we might confuse with chemistry. And so we chase them. And we go through a cycle, especially in this. We're going to go through one of two cycles, depending on the other individual's orientation, attachment-wise. We'll go through a seduction, abuse, and discard cycle with them, especially if they're toxic. If they come from a toxic background or behaving toxic ways, and that's going to put us through a euphoria, distress, and despair emotional cycle. Or if we're pursuing someone more just on the avoidance side of things, we're going to experience a smothering, like they're love bombing us. That's where the seduction component is. And then a sharp withdrawal. And that's going to lead us from euphoria into distress and back into despair. And so internally, we are in a massive tug of war. And this sets us up to become chemically bonded with this person. I mean, we chase it. We're hooked on this because we're getting massive hits of dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. And then we're being dosed with cortisol and adrenaline. And we're going through this big swing up and down because of the intermittent pattern of that relationship. And so what do we do about this? How are we going to handle this? So in my course, Choose the Pattern, Not the Promise, one of the first steps we do is we identify the nervous system activations that are going on. We start to soothe them. So we basically have to target three areas: the nervous system, your self-concept, and what I call meta-reality. And so again, in Choose the Pattern, Not the Promise, we start with the nervous system. We have to first build a tool set that we can use to work with the nervous system. And then in that, we start to expand capacity for uncertainty and capacity for our pain. Because one thing that we're doing a lot in this pattern is we are hooked on limerence. We use limerence to avoid the pain, to fill in the emptiness, and to give us hope. So as a child, when we were going through this intermittent reinforcement pattern with our parent, we were experiencing some profound neglect, some profound emptiness and loneliness there. And we started using fantasy to fill that in. The fantasy of my parent loving me unconditionally, the fantasy of me finally getting them to love and like me as I am, doing the thing that really turns it around, that kind of stuff. And that tends to invoke this euphoria. And then we move into this thing that's this euphoria that's typically called limerence. It's meaning I'm living in a fantasy, when they love me, I'm going to feel this way. Well, we're just feeling it. We're thinking that this is a real thing when we've got opposite patterns presenting themselves in reality based on their behavior. We're ignoring those patterns and we're chasing this promise, because what's happened is when we get the euphoria, when they give us the breadcrumb of love or attention or affection, we think that means we have succeeded. We think that, what I'm doing is working, and we're ignoring all the misses. And when we ignore the misses, we ignore the pattern, and we just keep chasing for that next breadcrumb of confirmation that this is working. So we fill in the gap where those misses are with limerence. That gives us hope. Let me know if this is making sense in the comments below. We have to start with the nervous system so that we can build capacity for the distress that limerence represents, and then start to soothe it. We have to soothe the distress of uncertainty, the distress of space. We have to soothe the distress of vulnerability so that we can then build capacity to access our pain and start to soothe that pain. And what this starts to do for us is it makes this nervous system a little more elastic, a little more flexible. And that allows us to move into the self-concept work where we address that root conclusion of being discardable. And we start to soften up that root conclusion through our nervous system work. And then we start to discharge the pain, the energy, the grief, the shame that is all bound up in that root conclusion. They're very gentle emotional titration processes until we reach the state where we're like, maybe I'm not discardable. Maybe I'm actually lovable, and I have been treated as though I am discardable. That's a massive shift in self-awareness and self-concept, going from I'm discardable to, I've been treated as though I'm discardable, yet I'm not. So this behavior is the problem, not me. And then when that happens, we can shift the meta-reality. Meta-reality is how we conceive others, life, and the world. And all the time, very consistently, when we're dealing with love chasing, we're dealing with a scarcity perspective of the world. We're dealing with a view of the world that says there's only so many people. There's not really people who are really compatible with me. And it's better to have something than nothing. We get into the better than nothing trap there. We have to shift this viewpoint of the world, this meta-reality, to an abundant one, going, there are innumerable opportunities with healthy and available people around me. My job is to be me and be available to detecting those people and then to choose them. So we have to shift that. When we shift these three things, we no longer need to chase. We become the chooser. We choose the pattern. We're choosing the pattern in two ways. One, we are choosing the pattern with the unhealthy person, the person that's not a fit for us, the person that's intermittent. We're going, I choose this pattern, meaning I accept that this pattern's happening, and now I'm going to leave it. This is important. Absolutely important. Because when I choose the pattern, I'm accepting that that's what's going on, and then I can get out of it and choose a different pattern. I can choose the available pattern. The person that is responsive consistently. The person that does repair when there's a rupture. The person that does attune to us most of the time. The person that works to be available and to understand us. Then we can choose that pattern. Now, this is the key here, my friends. We're not going to feel worthy. We're not going to feel safe. We're not even going to feel attracted to that available pattern until we remap our nervous system so that our attachment system shifts from anxious to more secure. And then our attraction system can light up going, I'm more attracted to calm, reliable things rather than the seesaw. Shift our self-concept from being discardable to being utterly cherished, keepable, and lovable. And then shift our meta-reality, the way we perceive the world, from scarcity to abundance so that we are available to choose the abundance and choose these new available people in our world. So in other words, choose the healthy pattern and choose to leave the old pattern. This is key to your liberation. That's what I teach you how to do, and choose the pattern, not the promise, so that you can detect unhealthy, toxic patterns, choose to leave those, and then detect healthy, available patterns, choose those, all through shifting the nervous system, so your attachment system shifts, shifting your self-concept, and your meta-reality. So we start May 11th. That's a Sunday at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. Info is below in the description if you're listening via podcast. It's at healyourcodependency.com. Come join us, and let's transform this in your world so that you can move out of this pattern of toxic, unavailable, intermittent reinforcement into a loving, secure patterns of relating with your friends, with yourself, and with your loves in your life. So let me know your thoughts below. Thank you for showing up for this episode. We'll have more on this. We're going to jump into lirance. We're going to jump into intermittent reinforcement, all that fun. And so I'm excited to teach you about this and help you start choosing the pattern, not the promise, so that you can be sober in what you choose and get the relationships you deserve in your life. Okay? See you in our next episode, guys. Bye-bye.